Good afternoon, everyone. This is Karen Main from St. Raphael's Parish, and today I will be looking at Chapter 4 in Mass Matters, and the chapter title is called Making a Statement. In this particular chapter, we're going to widen our scope as to why we are invited to church. We're going to look at various reasons why we go or should go, or reasons perhaps that why we don't go. So going to church today in a society that we've talked about that's very individualistic and very secular makes a huge statement, because so many people rely on spirituality by their own means, or they don't feel a tie to a church or any form of organized religion. We definitely make a statement to those that we know or those around us by saying, we choose to do this. It is definitely an option that we have, and it really is bigger and wider than us. So as we look at that, we also need to get out of our own little personal world and see that church just isn't about that I'm going to do this today, this is my effort, my car, my traffic I experience, my piety, my parking place, my pew. But going to church really should be seen as something very communal. It's really imperative when we look at the way God summons us. He does love all of us individually, but the nature of the word Catholic is universal, and it's bigger and wider than just the individual person coming. It's really and truly seen as a global affair. The Eucharist is an invitation to socially experience the shared presence of God. And I love this line in the book, so I'm going to share it with you again. The Eucharist is an invitation to socially experience the shared presence of God. It's about going and giving a part of myself to all believers with the conviction, as someone expressed, that my presence on Sunday is absolutely necessary for the church's mission. So again, it has to do with the community and the communal worship. Another saying in the book, as a writer put it, stated, going to Mass is not fundamentally about my unique spiritual experience, but about giving over part of myself in love to all other believers so that together we can manifest Christ's love for the world. So as we contemplate on that, we also know that in modern day, there's also a lot of competitors for Sunday. We talked a little bit about the neighborhood church and how after World War II with suburbia, and we've all moved out, we don't have our identifiable cultural neighborhoods for the most part anymore. And that's not a bad thing. We are all proud of our individualistic features, but to just focus on our individualism isn't what this is all about. And as we've moved away from those belief systems and the uniqueness of our cultures, we've kind of gotten a little bit washed out and undistinguishable from our faith. And it's just a trend that's been going on. We sometimes, as a Catholic or a citizen, we might have lost some of our ethical values, our social mores, and our cultural tastes, being that we're not completely surrounded by our cultural backgrounds anymore. And we don't always make a statement different from all others, especially, on a Sabbath. Is our Sabbath or our Sunday, that does make a stand when we choose to do something different, and going to church can be part of that. Are we more concerned about getting to church and why we go to church, or while we're at church, are we more concerned about, what we're doing after? Are we going to get all the bargains, all the coupons that we have at the Walmart and our grocery store, and all the other things that we need to do on a weekend when we have the time to do it? So we need to remind ourselves that the Sabbath was not always such a privilege for us. And sometimes especially now in this time of COVID, when that privilege has been taken away due to COVID and we need to maintain that social distancing, let's go back and remind ourselves who and how we really received this privilege. Remember that the Hebrews were slaves of the Babylonians for many, many centuries. And they fought. They lived horrid lives. They worked 7 days a week. They worked, 15 hours a day. They were hauling stone. They were building all these monuments and huge cities for the Babylonians. And they kept rebelling. And they kept rebelling and asking that their covenant with their God be shown. And they were actually almost telling the Babylonians that if you don't allow us this day of rest, this Sabbath that we ask for, we will all stop working. And the Babylonians saw that as, if they stop working, this is really going to put us in a bind. They are our workforce, so they gave in and they honored that day of worship to the Babylonians. And they asked the Babylonians asked the Hebrews, why? Why is this so important to you? And the Hebrews answered, to remind ourselves that we are more than workers. I'm going to repeat that. To remind ourselves that we are more than workers. I think that's really important, that we realize that we, in today's world, are more than. Now, in their day, they were more than slaves and workers. They wanted that time to honor their God, to honor their families, to rest, to become that unity with God and to allow God into their lives. But what about today's world? We're slaves too, but we're slaves to other things. We are sometimes slaves to the way we dress, the way we look, the way we smell, the way we perform, the way we produce. Our culture and our advertising, dictates to us through so much advertising that if we use this product, it's going to make us great, it's going to make us successful. Our jobs and our industries tell us that if we work harder, we're going to be seen as more productive. We're going to be seen greater in the eyes of those around us. We're going to be more successful. We're going to make more money. We're going to live nicer lives. And all of that goes with that type of mentality. But we step back and we need to say it's not all about me. It's really about us and who we are. We are more than what our society dictates to us. We are more than that. And even though we're in a different day and age, we need to understand that we still become slaves to many of our identities within society. We really need to open up and we need to think globally. And on any given Sunday, millions of us, we are the church of every incarnation. And as we come together on a Sunday, we are coming together. And these rituals anchor our lives. So let's not take for granted the boundaries that keep us safe. Let's look bigger and wider than what society tells us. So as we go into the next week or end this, we again are approaching church. Let's see if we can return to our Sabbath roots as to a day or a time that we can set aside And sometimes our work schedules require us to work on a Sunday. Well, where are we finding our Sabbath throughout the week? And, even though Sunday Mass is part of our religion and we do go to Sunday Mass, it's required of us, there are Masses during the week. There are other things that we can do to set aside time and prayer with God, even in our own homes. So if we're saying why we're not going to church, let's contemplate the following. I stay away from church because it rains. You go to work in the rain. I stay away from church because it's hot. So is the golf course. I stay away from church because it's cold. It's warm and friendly inside. I stay away from church because I am poor. There is no admission charge. I stay away from church because I'm rich. Well, we can take care of that. I stay away from church because no one invited me. People go to the movies without being asked. I stay away from church because I have children. God loves them. I stay away from church because there are hypocrites there. We associate with hypocrites every day. I stay away from church because my clothes are not expensive. It's not a fashion show. I stay away from church because the church always wants money. So does the government. I stay away from church because I have company. They will admire your loyalty, whether you bring them along or ask them to wait until you get back. I stay away from church because I have plenty of time to go later. Are you sure? So here, as we wind this podcast up, perhaps this week we can take a look at two things. What does Sabbath mean to you? And if your Sabbath may not be compatible due to your lifestyle or your work schedule with things that are absolutely pertinent for you to do on a Sunday, when do you find Sabbath time for your God? And if you don't come to church because of other things, why are those things so important to you that you can't perhaps reschedule or put aside to another time? What keeps you from coming to church? Maybe nothing. Maybe you are very dedicated. But I'm sure we've all run across people with the same philosophy of why they don't go. So let's just think about that this week and really see if we can really value what the Hebrew people did for us centuries ago. They retaliated. They fought for time with God. Do we fight for time with God? Thank you. Until next week. Bye.